My family demanded I marry my dad's best friend's son. When I eloped with my boyfriend instead, they exploded. "You're dead to us," my dad screamed. Now, my phone won't stop buzzing, with threats, lies, and a secret that could ruin everything. Their notifications light up my screen every few minutes. Texts, missed calls, voicemails. I've muted most of them, but they still appear like angry little reminders of the chaos I've left behind. 3 days since I said I do to Ethan in that small chapel in Vermont, and my family still can't accept that I've made my own choice. I'm Ava Chen, 26, graphic designer at a mid-sized marketing firm in Boston. My parents immigrated from Shanghai before I was born, carrying with them not just suitcases, but generations of traditional expectations. Growing up, I balanced between two worlds: the American independence I craved and the filial piety my parents demanded. Family connections are everything, my father would say. In America, we need our community even more. That's why, when I turned 25, my parents announced they'd found the perfect match for me. Michael Huang, my dad's best friend's son, a successful surgeon with the right family background. We'd met at community gatherings over the years. Always polite, always distant. He was handsome enough, successful enough, Chinese enough, the perfect son-in-law in my parents' eyes. The only problem? I'd been dating Ethan Williams for 3 years. My white public school teacher boyfriend who made me laugh until my sides hurt and supported every wild creative project I tackled. This isn't the 1800s, I told my parents when they first brought up the arrangement. I'm not going to marry someone just because you're friends with his father. My mother's face had hardened. You always think you know better. So American. Michael is established from a good family. What more could you want? What more? How about love? Chemistry? Shared dreams? For months, I endured weekly family dinners where Michael would coincidentally show up. My Aunt Wei spread rumors in our community that I was already engaged to him. My younger cousin Lily texted me, "Everyone at the cultural center is talking about your wedding. When is it?" It was suffocating. "They'll never accept us," I told Ethan one night, crying in his apartment after another disastrous family dinner. "My dad wouldn't even look at you when I brought you to Lunar New Year." Ethan took my hands. "Then let's just do it. Let's get married, Ava." Not for them, for us. The plan came together quickly. A weekend trip to Vermont, a small chapel, just us and 2 witnesses. My college roommate Priya and Ethan's brother James. Simple rings, heartfelt vows, and the most genuine happiness I'd felt in months. We sent the family text after it was done. A simple photo of us outside the chapel, rings visible, with the caption, "We decided to follow our hearts. Just married." The explosion was nuclear. My phone rang within seconds. My mother wailing so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "How could you do this to us? The shame, the disrespect." My father took the phone next, his voice ice cold. "You are no daughter of mine. You have betrayed your family, your culture, everything we've done for you." The calls and texts poured in from every relative. Some I hadn't heard from in years. My Aunt Wei's message was particularly cutting. "Your poor parents. After everything they sacrificed, you choose this selfish path with some white boy who will never understand our ways." That was 3 days ago. We're back in Boston now, in Ethan's apartment, where I've been staying more and more often. My own place feels unsafe somehow, like my family might show up to drag me back home. This morning, I woke up to 37 new notifications and a disturbing voicemail from my cousin. "Ava, you need to know what's happening. Aunt Wei is telling everyone you were pregnant and had to get married quickly. She's saying Ethan forced you into it, that he's using you for your family's money." People are believing her. Even Michael's family is involved now, saying you led him on. It's getting ugly. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands shaking. Ethan was still asleep beside me, his face peaceful. He had no idea what my family was capable of when they felt dishonored. My phone buzzed again. A text from my childhood friend Min, who still attended my parents' church. "Your mom is crying at church, telling everyone you've abandoned the family and rejected your culture. She showed everyone a photo of you and Michael from last Christmas, saying you broke his heart." Ava, what's going on? The lies were spreading like wildfire through our tight-knit community. My reputation, my character, my reasons, all being twisted into something unrecognizable. I could feel my chest tightening, that familiar anxiety creeping in. But something else was building too, a slow-burning anger I'd never allowed myself to feel toward my family. They weren't just disapproving, they were deliberately destroying my name, my relationships, my standing in the only community I'd ever known. I looked at Ethan, still sleeping peacefully, unaware of the storm swirling around us. He'd been nothing but supportive, patient, loving, everything they refused to see. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Min. "People are saying they'll boycott your parents' restaurant if they don't bring you back to your senses. Your dad is telling everyone he's disowned you. Ava, this is serious." I stood up, suddenly calm in a way that surprised even me. I walked to the window of Ethan's apartment and looked out at the Boston skyline, the morning sun glinting off glass buildings. For years, I'd been the dutiful daughter, the peacekeeper, the one who bent to keep from breaking. Not anymore. I opened my laptop and began to type. If my family wanted to spread lies, I would spread truth. Every painful, honest bit of it. I had evidence. The texts demanding I break up with Ethan, the recordings of family dinners where they'd ambushed me with Michael, the threatening messages about cutting me off. They thought shame was their weapon. They had no idea I had finally found mine, the truth. I typed until my fingers ached. Every memory, every manipulation, every moment of guilt they'd forced on me, I documented it all. The truth poured out of me like a flood breaking through a dam that had been holding back years of resentment. My blog post started with a simple headline, "Why I Eloped," an open letter to the community that's being lied to. I never wanted to air our family's dirty laundry, I wrote, but when lies are being spread about me, about my husband, about our relationship, I have no choice but to defend myself with the truth. I attached screenshots of the texts from my mother. "If you continue seeing this white boy, we will cut you off completely. Think of what this will do to your father's reputation." I included voice recordings from family dinners where they'd cornered me. "Michael has already told his parents he intends to propose," my Aunt Way had said, while Michael sat there smiling smugly, despite never having taken me on a single date. My phone buzzed as I was writing. Another text from Min. "Your mom is," showing people pictures of Michael at the hospital, saying he's heartbroken and can't focus on his surgeries because of what you did. People are really worried about his patients. I felt sick. They were willing to go that far, to suggest patients' lives might be at risk because of my decision? I added this new lie to my growing document. Ethan came home from work while I was still typing. He set his bag down quietly, watching me with concern. "You okay?" he asked, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. I looked up at him, this man who'd never once tried to control me, who'd supported every decision I'd made, who'd stood by me even when my family treated him like he was invisible. "I'm fighting back," I said, turning my laptop screen toward him. His eyes widened as he scanned the document. "Ava, are you sure about this? Once it's out there, they're destroying my reputation, Ethan. They're making you out to be some predator who forced me into marriage. They're even saying Michael's patients could be at risk because he's so devastated." I shook my head. I can't let them keep spreading these lies. Ethan sat beside me, reading through everything I'd written. When he finished, he looked at me with a mixture of sadness and pride. "It's your story to tell," he said finally. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you." I took a deep breath and hit publish. Within minutes, my phone started buzzing constantly. I turned it off. I couldn't deal with their reactions yet. "What now?" Ethan asked. "Now we wait," I said. "And I need to go to my apartment to pick up more clothes." Ethan insisted on coming with me. The drive to my place was tense. I kept scanning the street for familiar cars, half expecting to see my parents or relatives waiting to ambush me. My apartment was exactly as I'd left it 3 days ago. I quickly packed more clothes while Ethan waited in the living room. That's when I heard the knock. "Ava, I know you're in there." Michael's voice. My blood ran cold. Ethan looked at me, silently asking what I wanted to do. I nodded toward the door. We'd face this together. When Ethan opened the door, Michael's face darkened. He pushed past him into my apartment without being invited. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Michael demanded, waving his phone at me. "Do you have any idea what you've done to our families?" "Our families?" I repeated incredulously. "Michael, we were never a couple. We never even dated." "That's not how it works, Ava, and you know it," he snapped. "Our parents arranged this. It was understood. By who? Not by me," I said, feeling a strange calm despite my racing heart. "I was with Ethan for 3 years. Everyone knew that. And now you've humiliated me in front of the entire community." Michael's voice rose. "My father can barely show his face at the association meetings. Your blog post is spreading everywhere, so people were reading it." "Good. I only wrote the truth," I said. "Unlike what your family and mine have been saying about me." Michael stepped closer, his finger pointing in my face. "You take that post down right now, or what?" Ethan stepped between us, his voice quiet but firm. Michael looked at him as if just remembering he was there. "This doesn't concern you. My wife concerns me," Ethan replied evenly. The word wife seemed to hit Michael like a physical blow, his face contorted with rage. "You have no idea what you've done," he said, looking past Ethan to me. "Your grandfather called my father today. He's devastated. He's talking about changing his will, Ava. Is that what you want? To be cut off completely?" I felt a pang at the mention of my grandfather. He was the only one in my family who had ever shown me unconditional love, but even that love, it seemed, had conditions after all. "If that's his choice, I'll accept it," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "I have my own life, my own career. I don't need family money." Michael laughed bitterly. "You say that now. Wait until you're struggling to pay rent while watching your sister inherit everything." As he turned to leave, he stopped at the door. "By the way, your mother is in the hospital. Stress-induced cardiac event. But I'm sure your precious truth was worth it." The door slammed behind him. I stood frozen, his parting words echoing in my head. "He's lying," Ethan said immediately. "He's trying to manipulate you. But what if he wasn't? What if my mother really was in the hospital? What if my blog post had pushed her over the edge?" I grabbed my phone and turned it back on. The notifications flooded in. Texts, calls, emails, social media alerts, but among them was a message from my cousin Lily, the only one in the family who had congratulated us on our marriage. "Don't believe what they're telling you about Aunt Lynn being in the hospital," She's fine. I just saw her at the cultural center an hour ago, telling everyone how her daughter has abandoned her. Stay strong, Ava. Relief washed over me, followed quickly by a new wave of anger. They would stoop so low as to fake a medical emergency? I showed Ethan the message. His jaw tightened. This has to stop, Ava. It will, I said, a new resolve hardening within me. I'm done letting them control the narrative. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I rarely used. It rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. Grandfather, it's Ava. We need to talk. And this time, I need you to actually listen. I sat in my apartment, phone pressed to my ear, waiting for my grandfather to pick up. 3 rings, 4. My heart pounded in my chest. He had always been my rock. The one person in my family who saw me for who I really was. Wei, his voice, warm and familiar, using my childhood nickname. I hadn't heard it in months. Yay, I said, my voice breaking. I need your help. I told him everything. The arranged marriage plans, eloping with Ethan, the smear campaign. My family was running through our community. He listened quietly, only occasionally asking a clarifying question. When I finished, there was silence on the line. They've forgotten what matters, he finally said. Your happiness should be there. Happiness. His words loosened something in my chest. They're saying terrible things about Ethan, about me. Come see me, he said firmly. Tomorrow. Bring your husband. It's time I meet the man my granddaughter chose. After hanging up, I turned to find Ethan standing in the doorway. Concern etched across his face. Everything okay? We're going to see my grandfather tomorrow, I said. He wants to meet you. Ethan sat beside me, taking my hand. Is that good or bad? I smiled for what felt like the first time in days. Good. Definitely good. The next morning, we drove to my grandfather's house in Brookline. He'd moved there after my grandmother passed, wanting to be closer to family but maintaining his independence. His home was a beautiful colonial with a garden he tended himself. A slice of peace in the chaos of my family drama. What if he doesn't? Like me? Ethan asked as we pulled into the driveway. I squeezed his hand. He will. He's not like the rest of them. The door opened before we reached it. My grandfather stood there, still straight-backed at 78, his smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. Wei, he said, opening his arms. I fell into his embrace, inhaling the familiar scent of sandalwood and tea. When we pulled apart, I wiped away tears I hadn't realized were falling. And you must be Ethan, he said, extending his hand. The man who married my granddaughter without letting me give her away. I froze, but Ethan met his gaze steadily. I'm sorry about that, sir. We wanted to do things our way, but I should have respected your place in Ava's life. My grandfather's serious expression held for a moment before breaking into a smile. Honesty. Good. Come in, both of you. Over tea and the almond cookies I'd loved since childhood. My grandfather listened as we shared more details about our relationship, our wedding, and the aftermath. His expression darkened when I showed him some of the messages from family members. Your mother was always too concerned. With face, he said, shaking his head, and your father follows her lead too easily. What should I do? I asked. They're turning everyone against us. He set down his teacup. First, you must understand something. This isn't about you, or even about Ethan. This is about control. Your parents planned your life, and you chose differently. But the lies they're spreading will only have power if you let them, he finished. The truth always surfaces Wei. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Min. Your mom is at the cultural center right now, telling everyone you've cut off all contact with the family and rejected your heritage. People are actually crying for her. I showed my grandfather the message, anger building inside me. See, they won't stop. He read it, then looked up at me with unexpected determination. Then perhaps it's time we showed up. What do you mean? Ethan asked. The community respects me, my grandfather said simply, if I stand with you both. Publicly, it changes everything. The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. You do that? Family supports family, he said firmly. Your parents have forgotten that. Within the hour, we were in my grandfather's car, heading to the cultural center. My stomach was in knots. I hadn't seen my mother since before the wedding. What exactly is the plan here? Ethan asked from the back seat. My grandfather smiled at him in the rearview mirror. We're going to tell the truth. All of it. The parking lot was full when we arrived. Saturday cultural classes were in session, and apparently my mother's drama was drawing quite an audience. My grandfather parked his Lexus in his reserved spot near the entrance. Ready? He asked. I nodded, though my legs felt like jelly. Ethan took my hand, his palm warm and steady against mine. Walking through those doors felt like entering a battlefield. The main hall was crowded with familiar faces. Parents of childhood friends, elders from church, my mother's mahjong group. They all turned as we entered, a wave of whispers spreading through the room. My mother stood at the center, tissues in hand, my Aunt Wei patting her shoulder consolingly. When she saw us, her performance froze mid-sob. Baba? She said, spotting my grandfather. Then her eyes landed on me, widening, before narrowing at the sight of Ethan and our clasped hands. What are you doing here? My grandfather stepped forward. I've come to congratulate my granddaughter and her husband properly, he announced, his voice carrying through the suddenly silent hall. Since I wasn't invited to their wedding, gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother's face flushed. Baba, you don't understand, she began, switching to Mandarin. She's been brainwashed by this. English, please, my grandfather interrupted. My new grandson-in-law should understand what we're saying about him. The community elders were watching with rapt attention. My grandfather was highly respected, his words carrying weight that even my mother couldn't dismiss. Now, he continued, I understand there have been many stories circulating. Let me be clear, Ava has made her choice. And as her family, we should respect that. My mother stepped forward, desperation in her eyes. But Michael, was your choice, not hers? My grandfather cut in firmly. From the corner of the room, a figure moved forward. Michael. I hadn't seen him since that confrontation at my apartment. He looked uncomfortable, avoiding my eyes. Actually, he said quietly, I need to say something. All eyes turned to him. My mother's face paled. Ava and I were never together, he said. Her parents and mine arranged everything without asking either of us. I went along with it because he hesitated, then squared his shoulders, because I was afraid to disappoint my family. But Ava was braver than me. The room erupted in murmurs. My Aunt Wei looked like she might faint. My mother was frantically trying to catch Michael's eye, but he deliberately turned toward me. I'm sorry, Ava, he said. I should have spoken up sooner. Before I could respond, the cultural center doors burst open again. My father stormed in, his face thunderous. Behind him was a man I recognized as Michael's father, looking equally furious. What is going on here? My father demanded, taking in the scene, me and Ethan holding hands, my grandfather standing protectively near us, Michael's apparent betrayal, and my mother's crumbling facade. The room fell silent again, my father's gaze locked with mine, and for the first time in my life, I didn't look away. The tension between us crackled like electricity. Ava, he said, his voice cold, you've humiliated this family enough. It's time to end this nonsense. I felt Ethan's hand tighten around mine. My grandfather stepped closer to my side, but something had changed inside me. The fear was gone. No, Ba, I said clearly. You're the ones who need to stop. The lies, the manipulation, the control, it ends today. My father's eyes widened in shock at my defiance. Then his expression hardened into something I'd never seen before. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. Then you leave me no choice, he said ominously, holding it up for everyone to see. You want to choose this. Stranger over your family? Let me show you exactly what that choice will cost you. The document trembled slightly in my father's hand, the overhead lights catching the official seal in the corner. I felt Ethan shift beside me, his hand finding mine and squeezing it gently. What is that, Ba? I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. My father's smile was cold. This, Ava, is the deed to your grandfather's house in Shanghai, the one he left specifically to you. He unfolded it with deliberate slowness. The house worth over $2 million that you were going to inherit on your 30th birthday. The room went silent. I hadn't known about any inheritance. Grandpa had passed away when I was in college, and while I knew he owned property in China, no one had ever mentioned it would come to me. You're lying, I said, but uncertainty crept into my voice. Am I? He placed the document on the coffee table. Your grandfather loved you. He thought you understood the importance of family, of honoring your heritage. He would be ashamed to see you now. My mother stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. We kept it as a surprise, Ava, for your future, for your children. Her gaze flicked dismissively toward Ethan. Real Chinese children who would know their culture. I felt dizzy. $2 million. A house in Shanghai, a connection to my roots that I'd always longed for. So that's your play? Ethan said quietly beside me. Financial blackmail? My father ignored him completely, addressing only me. The inheritance has conditions. Marriage to a suitable Chinese husband from a respectable family. Michael's father and I have already discussed. You were planning to force me to marry Michael for money? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How long have you been plotting this? Not plotting, my mother interjected. Protecting your future. Your interests? My interests? I laughed bitterly. You don't even know what those are. Aunt Wei stepped forward, her voice honey-sweet but eyes sharp as knives. Ava, don't be foolish. Think about what you're throwing away. For what? This teacher? She gestured at Ethan like he was something she'd found stuck to her shoe. I love him, I said simply. Love? My father spat the word. Love doesn't build security. Love doesn't maintain cultural connections. Love fades, but family and tradition remain. I looked around the room at my relatives. Some looking smug, others uncomfortable, all expecting me to cave. This had been their plan all along, the perfect trap. The inheritance is legally binding, my father continued. Your marriage to this man invalidates your claim. But he paused dramatically. There are options. Options? I repeated. Annulment, Aunt Wei said quickly. The marriage is only days old. We can make it disappear. No one in the community needs to know. You can still marry Michael as planned. I felt Ethan's hand tighten around mine. He hadn't said a word, letting me fight my own battle, but I could feel the tension radiating from him. So that's what all this has been about, I said slowly. The rumors, the lies about Ethan forcing me, about pregnancy. You were trying to create a narrative where our marriage was a mistake that needed fixing. My cousin Lily couldn't meet my eyes. She was the one who'd warned me about the rumors. Consider your future, Ava, my father pressed. $2 million, a piece of your heritage. your family's respect. He glanced coldly at Ethan. Or this man and a life of struggle. I looked at the document on the table, then at Ethan, then back at my family. For a moment, I allowed myself to imagine the life they wanted for me, married to Michael, living in luxury, but forever under their control. Every decision scrutinized, every choice measured against their expectations. You know what the funny thing is? I said finally. Grandpa always told me to be true to myself. He said America gave our family the freedom to choose our own paths. My father's expression darkened. Your grandfather understood duty, did he? Because I remember him differently. I reached for my phone, scrolling through old photos until I found what I was looking for. I held it up, a picture of my grandfather, and me at my college graduation, his face beaming with pride. He was proud of me. Not because I was following tradition, but because I was brave enough to forge my own way. I put my phone away. I don't think he'd approve of this manipulation. You don't know what you're saying, my mother hissed. $2 million, Ava. I took a deep breath. Keep it. I don't want anything that comes with these kinds of strings. The room erupted in protests, my relatives talking over each other in shock. How could I be so foolish, so ungrateful, so American? I turned to Ethan, whose eyes were filled with concern. Are you sure? He whispered. That's your heritage. You're my future. I whispered back. My father slammed his hand on the table, silencing everyone. This is your final chance, Ava. Choose your family and your inheritance, or leave here with nothing. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I saw not my intimidating, all-powerful father, but a man desperately clinging to control as it slipped through his fingers. I already have everything I need, I said, taking Ethan's hand. We turned toward the door, and I felt lighter with each step, the weight of expectations falling away. If you walk out that door, you are no longer our daughter, my mother cried. I paused at the threshold, turning back one last time. I'll always be your daughter, when you're ready to accept me. All of me, including my husband. You know where to find us. We stepped outside into the cool evening air, the door slamming behind us. For a moment, we stood in silence, the magnitude of what had just happened washing over me. Are you okay? Ethan asked gently. I nodded slowly. I think I am. Or I will be. As we walked to the car, my phone buzzed with a text. I expected another angry message from my parents, but instead it was from my cousin Lily. I saved Grandpa's real will before Uncle could destroy it. He never added those marriage conditions. The house is yours. No strings attached. Meet me tomorrow? I stared at the screen, a slow smile spreading across my face. Perhaps my grandfather had protected me after all, in ways my parents never anticipated. And now, it was my turn to reclaim not just my inheritance, but the truth itself. I read the text again and again, my hands trembling. The house was mine. No strings attached. No forced marriage to Michael. My grandfather had never betrayed me. Ethan, I whispered, showing him the screen. Look at this. He squinted at the bright display, then his eyes widened. Wait, is this saying what I think it's saying? My uncle, my father's brother, he must have altered the will somehow. The pieces were falling into place now. A twisted puzzle of family manipulation. They've been lying to me this whole time. For months, my parents had insisted that my grandfather's will included a specific condition. I would only inherit his historic Boston brownstone, worth millions in today's market, if I married within the community. They'd presented it as my grandfather's dying wish, his final attempt to preserve our cultural heritage. It had been the ultimate leverage, the emotional blackmail that pushed me to the breaking point. But why would Lily have the real will? Ethan asked as we settled into his car. She works at my uncle's law firm as a paralegal. She must have seen something. I stared out the window, watching the city lights blur as we drove. I always thought it was strange. Grandpa and I were so close. He knew how much I loved you, the Paul. Brownstone had been my sanctuary growing up. While my parents' home was strict and stifling, my grandfather's house was where I could breathe, where I could sketch for hours in the bay window overlooking the garden, where he would tell me stories about my grandmother, an American artist he'd fallen in love with against his own parents' wishes. He defied his family for love, I murmured, more to myself than to Ethan. He wouldn't have put those conditions on me. Back at Ethan's apartment, I paced while he made tea. My mind was racing, connecting dots that had been scattered for months. My uncle handled all of Grandpa's legal affairs. He's the one who read us the will after the funeral. My parents weren't even surprised by the marriage clause. They must have known. I stopped pacing. They were all in on it. Ethan handed me a steaming mug. So your parents used the inheritance as an excuse to pressure you into marrying Michael? It wasn't just about Michael. I took a sip, letting the warmth spread through me. It was about control, about keeping me within their carefully constructed boundaries. That night, I barely slept. I scrolled through old photos of my grandfather and me. At my college graduation, painting the garden fence together, making dumplings in his kitchen. In every image, his eyes held the same gentle pride, the same acceptance. He would have loved you, I told Ethan as we lay in bed, the city lights casting shadows across the ceiling. He valued authenticity above all else. I wish I could have met him, Ethan said, pulling me closer. He was the only one who ever really saw me, I whispered. Not who they wanted me to be, but who I actually am. Morning came with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. I texted Lily back, arranging to meet at a coffee shop far from both our family's usual haunts. Then I did something I hadn't done since the wedding. I called my father. He answered on the first ring. Ava, his voice was stiff, formal. I know. About the will, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. The real one. Silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken accusations. You don't understand what's at stake, he finally said. Our family name, our position in the community. No, you don't understand. I cut him off. Grandpa left me that house because he loved me for who I am, not as some bargaining chip for you to control my future. That boy will never understand our ways, my father hissed. You've thrown away everything we built for you. I've chosen my own path, I replied, just like Grandpa did when he married Grandma. I could almost feel him flinching at the comparison. This isn't over, he warned before hanging up. Ethan found me on the balcony, staring out at the city skyline. How did it go? About as well as expected. I leaned into him, drawing strength from his presence, but it felt good to finally say what I've been holding back. Later that afternoon, I met Lily at the coffee shop. She looked nervous, constantly glancing over her shoulder as she slid a manila envelope across the table. This is a copy of the original will, she whispered. I made it before Uncle could destroy all evidence. There's also a letter Grandpa wrote to you that no one ever gave you. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Inside was indeed the will, without any marriage, conditions, and a sealed letter with my name written in my grandfather's elegant handwriting. How did you know? I asked. Lily stirred her untouched coffee. I overheard Uncle and your dad arguing about it right after Grandpa died. Uncle wanted to destroy the will completely and claim Grandpa died intestate. But your dad insisted on the marriage clause instead. She looked down. They thought it would be enough to control you. I carefully opened the letter, recognizing the rice paper my grandfather always used for important correspondence. My dearest Ava, it began. If you're reading this, I am gone, but my love for you remains. The house is yours, to share with whomever you choose to love. Your grandmother and I built our life there despite the disapproval of both our families. May it shelter your dreams as it did ours. Remember, the truest inheritance is the courage to live authentically. All my love, Grandpa. Tears blurred my vision as I folded the letter carefully back into the envelope. Thank you, I told Lily, reaching across to squeeze her hand. You've given me back a piece of him. That evening, as Ethan and I discussed our next steps, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. It was Michael. We need to talk. My parents just told me everything. I had no idea what they were planning. Meet me tomorrow at the park near your grandfather's house. 2 p.m. Come alone. I showed Ethan the message, watching his brow furrow with concern. It could be a trap, he said. Your family might be trying to get you alone. Or maybe he's telling the truth, I countered. Maybe he's as much a pawn in this as I was. I thought about Michael. Always polite, somewhat distant. Had he been an active participant in this scheme? Or just another victim of our family's manipulation? I'm going, I decided, but I'll be careful. That night, I dreamed of my grandfather's house, of sunlight streaming through stained glass, windows, of laughter echoing in high-ceilinged rooms, of a future where Ethan and I made it our own. I woke with purpose burning in my chest. The next morning, I gathered the will, the letter, and a small recording device I'd purchased on the way home yesterday. Whatever happened at this meeting with Michael, I would be prepared. The time for being manipulated was over. As I dressed, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. Shoulders back, eyes clear. For the first time in months, I recognized myself again. I'm meeting Michael at 2, I told Ethan, kissing him goodbye. If I'm not back by 4, call me. If I don't answer, come to the park. Are you sure about this? Worry lined his face. I nodded, tucking the documents securely into my bag. I need answers. And after today, they'll all know exactly who they're dealing with. The familiar weight of my grandfather's jade pendant rested against my chest, his last birthday gift to me. I touched it briefly, drawing strength from the connection. They thought they could use his memory to control me, I said quietly. Instead, it's going to be their undoing. The morning air felt electric as I stepped out of Ethan's apartment. My grandfather's jade pendant, cool against my skin, seemed to pulse with each determined step I took. The documents in my bag contained everything: financial records, emails, meeting minutes, all proving what I'd suspected for months. My family's real estate development company, Chen Holdings, had been systematically buying up properties in Chinatown, forcing out small business owners who'd been there for generations. The same community they claimed to cherish and protect, and my father was the architect behind it all. Are you sure about this? Ethan had asked before I left. Concern etched across his face. Once you go public with this, there's no going back. I'd kissed him softly. They crossed the line when they tried to control my life. But using my grandfather's memory to justify destroying our community, that's unforgivable. My phone buzzed. A text from my cousin Min. Your parents are telling everyone you're having a mental breakdown. They're saying Ethan manipulated you into marriage and turned you against the family. Be careful. I almost laughed at the irony. For years, I'd been the dutiful daughter, working weekends at the family business, attending every community function. even going on those awkward get-to-know-you dinners with Michael, all while my parents were secretly planning to demolish the very heart of our community. The coffee shop where I'd arranged to meet the journalist was just ahead. Jenny Wu from the Boston Chronicle had been investigating gentrification in Chinatown for months. When I reached out with evidence connecting my family to the developer behind it all, she'd immediately agreed to meet. My phone rang. Michael. After ignoring his calls for days, I decided to answer. Ava, what are you doing? His voice was tight with anger. Your parents are worried sick. They're saying you've stolen confidential documents from the company. So they know already, I said, feeling strangely calm. Tell me, Michael, did you know about the development plans for Chinatown? His hesitation told me everything. You did. No. Was that part of our arrangement too? Marry me so I'd keep quiet about the family business? It's not that simple, he said defensively. Your father is creating something amazing. Modern housing, upscale retail, it'll revitalize the area. By forcing out families who've been there for generations, the same families who welcomed my parents when they first arrived, my voice cracked slightly. My grandfather would be ashamed. Your grandfather was a businessman too, Ava. He understood progress. The mention of my grandfather ignited something fierce within me. Don't you dare speak about him. He built community. He didn't destroy it for profit. I ended the call and pushed open the door to the coffee shop. Jenny was already there, laptop open, recorder ready. Ava, she said, standing to greet me. Thank you for coming. I know this can't be easy. I slid the documents across the table. These show everything. The shell companies my father created to hide his involvement. The below-market offers to elderly shop owners. The plans to replace the community center with luxury condos. Jenny flipped through the pages, her eyes widening. This is comprehensive. And you're willing to go on record using your name? I touched my grandfather's jade pendant again. Yes. My name is the reason people in Chinatown trusted my family. It's time they knew the truth. As Jenny reviewed the documents, my phone exploded with notifications. My father was calling, then my mother, then Aunt Wei. I silenced it and set it face down on the table. They know what I'm doing, I told Jenny. We don't have much time before they try to stop this story. She nodded, already typing notes. I'll need to verify some of these claims, but we can run a preliminary piece online by tomorrow. Front page for the weekend edition. My phone vibrated against the table again. A text from Ethan. Your father just showed up at my school. He's demanding to see me. What should I do? My blood ran cold. I need to go, I told Jenny, gathering my things. My father is confronting my husband right now. We can finish this later, she said, already copying the documents. But Ava, once this runs, your relationship with your family ended the moment I discovered what they were willing to do for money. I finished for her. Print everything. Outside, I called Ethan, my heart pounding. No answer. I tried again. Nothing. A black SUV pulled up to the curb beside me, the window rolling down to reveal my father's stone-cold face. Get in, Ava, he commanded. This childish rebellion has gone far enough. Where's Ethan? I demanded. What did you do? My father's expression remained impassive. Your husband is fine. For now, but this story you're planning to run, it will destroy everything our family has built. Everything your grandfather sacrificed for. Don't talk about sacrifice, I spat. Grandfather built this community. You're tearing it down. You understand nothing about business, he said dismissively. Now get in the car. We need to discuss how to fix the mess you've created. I stood my ground. The story runs tomorrow. There's nothing to discuss. Something dangerous flashed in my father's eyes. Then you leave me no choice. Michael told me you know about the development plans. What you don't know is who else is involved. He slid a folder through the window. Open it. With trembling hands, I did. Inside was a photo of Ethan, shaking hands with the CEO of Westbrook Development, the company partnering with my family on the Chinatown project. The timestamp showed it was taken 6 months ago, long before our elopement. Your husband has known all along, Ava, my father said quietly. He's been consulting on the project since the beginning. Why do you think he was so eager to marry you? He needed to know if you discovered the plans. I stared at the photo, the world tilting beneath my feet. It couldn't be true. Ethan wouldn't, but there he was, smiling and shaking hands with the man helping to destroy Chinatown. Now, my father said, opening the car door. Shall we discuss how to handle this situation as a family? I clutched my grandfather's pendant, my mind racing. If Ethan had betrayed me, if everyone had been lying all along, then there was only one path forward. Yes, I said, my voice steady as I reached for my phone. Let's discuss it. But first, I need to make one call. I stared at my phone screen, the harsh blue light illuminating my face in the darkness of our bedroom. It was 3:17 a.m. and sleep had abandoned me hours ago. The latest text from my mother was just one in an endless barrage. You have brought shame to our entire family. Michael's parents won't even speak to us now. 7 days had passed since our elopement. 7 days of digital harassment, community gossip, and the systematic dismantling of my character by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. Beside me, Ethan slept peacefully, one arm draped protectively across my waist, even in his dreams. I envied his ability to rest. My mind raced with every accusation, every lie, every manipulation my family had orchestrated since our wedding photo hit their phones. You need to block them, Ethan had suggested yesterday over breakfast, at least temporarily. This is harassment, Ava. But something in me couldn't do it. Some twisted sense of obligation, some last thread of hope that they might eventually understand. I carefully slid out from under Ethan's arm and padded to the kitchen, our apartment. Officially our apartment now that I'd moved the last of my things in yesterday, was still unfamiliar in the dark. I bumped my hip against the counter and winced. As I made tea, my phone buzzed again. A text from my cousin Min. Your father went to Ethan's school today. He was asking questions about him to the principal. Ava, this is getting scary. The mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the tile floor. Tea splashed up my legs, but I barely felt it. Ava? Ethan appeared in the doorway, hair tousled from sleep. What happened? I couldn't speak, just handed him my phone. His face darkened as he read. This has gone too far, he said, setting the phone down carefully as if it might explode. They're trying to interfere with my job now? I'm so sorry, I whispered, tears welling up. I never thought they'd... Don't apologize, Ethan said firmly, grabbing the broom. This isn't your fault. None of it is. As he swept up the broken ceramic, I leaned against the counter, suddenly exhausted. What if they never stop? What if this is just our life now? Constantly looking over our shoulders, waiting for the next attack. Ethan set the broom aside and took my hands. Then we face it together. But Ava, at some point, you have to decide what you're willing to accept. His words hung in the air between us, heavy with truth. What was I willing to accept? The question followed me through the next day at work, where I could barely focus on the branding project due that afternoon. During my lunch break, I received an email from my Aunt Wei, forwarded to my entire extended family and several community members. Attached were photos of Ethan and me from various social media accounts, alongside a long message detailing how I had abandoned my culture and broken a good Chinese man's heart for someone who would never understand our values. The final line read, "We must pray for Ava to realize her mistake before it's too late." Something inside me snapped. The slow-burning anger that had been building for days suddenly roared into a wildfire. I was done being the villain in their story. That evening, I called my grandfather, the family patriarch who had remained conspicuously silent throughout the ordeal. Yay, I said when he answered, using the Chinese term for paternal grandfather. I need your help. My grandfather had always been different from the rest of the family. More progressive, more understanding. He'd come to America in his 20s, built a business from nothing, and believed deeply in the promise of a new life. Ava, his voice was soft but clear. I've been waiting for your call. You have? Yes. I wanted to give you time. Your parents, they are stuck in old ways. They forget why we came to this country. I felt tears prick my eyes. They're spreading lies about me, about Ethan. They went to his workplace. They're trying to destroy us. There was a long pause. Come to dinner on Sunday, he finally said. Bring your husband. I will invite everyone. My heart raced. Yay, I don't think. Trust me, Ava. It's time to end this. After hanging up, I told Ethan about the invitation. His face showed concern, but also determination. Are you sure about this? He asked. Walking into the lion's den, I nodded slowly. My grandfather wouldn't set us up for failure. He's the only one they all respect. If anyone can make them stop, it's him. The days until Sunday crawled by. I prepared myself mentally, gathering evidence of every lie, every manipulation. I saved screenshots, recorded voicemails, documented each intrusion. This wasn't just about defending our marriage anymore. It was about reclaiming my narrative. Sunday arrived with perfect autumn clarity. As we drove to my grandfather's house in Brookline, Ethan reached over and squeezed my hand. Whatever happens in there, he said, we leave together. My grandfather's house was already full when we arrived. The familiar sense of Chinese cooking filled the air, but the warmth stopped there. Silence fell as we entered the living room. My mother turned away. My father's face hardened. Aunt Wei whispered something to my cousin. Only my grandfather stood, walking slowly to embrace me, then extending his hand to Ethan. Welcome to my home, he said clearly, his accent thick, but his intention unmistakable. Dinner was excruciating. Conversation happened around us, never including us. Michael's absence was conspicuous, though his parents sat rigidly across from me, barely touching their food. Finally, as dessert was served, my grandfather tapped his glass. I have something to say, he announced. All eyes turned to him. In China, I had nothing. I came here for opportunity, yes, but also for freedom. Freedom to choose my path. He looked directly at my parents. The same freedom we wanted for our children. My mother started to speak, but he raised his hand. Ava has chosen her path, her husband. He nodded toward Ethan. This harassment must stop. My father's face flushed. You don't understand what she's done. I understand perfectly. My grandfather interrupted. She has lived the American dream we sacrificed for, making her own choices, finding her own happiness. The tension in the room was palpable. My Aunt Wei muttered something about family obligation, and suddenly I couldn't stay silent any longer. I stood, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. All eyes turned to me. "I've listened to your lies for days," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "You've tried to destroy my reputation, my husband's career, our peace, all because I didn't follow your plan for my life." I pulled out my phone, opened my carefully organized folder of evidence. It stops today. Every lie, every manipulation, every attempt to control me, I have it all documented here, and I'm prepared to share it with everyone. The entire community, Michael's family, everyone at church, unless you agree to leave us alone. Gasps echoed around the table. My mother's face paled. "You wouldn't dare," my Aunt Wei hissed. I met her gaze steadily. "Try me." The silence that followed was deafening. I could see the calculations happening behind their eyes. The potential humiliation, the loss of face if everyone saw how they'd behaved. My grandfather smiled slightly, pride evident in his eyes. "I think," he said quietly, "my granddaughter has made herself clear." As we drove home that night, a weight lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe freely. "Do you think it worked?" Ethan asked. I looked down at my phone, where a text from my grandfather had just appeared. "They will not bother you again. Come for tea next week, just us." "I think so," I said, smiling. "But if not?" I patted my bag, where a USB drive contained copies of everything. Every manipulative message, every lie, every scheme. I'd made multiple backups, stored safely in various locations. Tomorrow, I would meet with a lawyer to discuss a restraining order just in case. I'd also scheduled an appointment with a therapist specializing in family trauma. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, I was fully in control of my own story. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Michael's name flashed on the screen. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. "Hello, Ava." His voice sounded different. Tired, maybe even apologetic. "We need to talk. There's something you should know about your parents' plans." I caught Ethan's questioning glance and nodded reassuringly as I turned on the call recorder app. "I'm listening," I said, reaching for my notebook. Whatever came next, I was ready.